Welcome, everyone. This is the Politics of Survival, and I'm your host, Tara Reid. It's been quite a week. We ended the week with an indictment for the first time in history of a U.S. president, former U.S. President Donald Trump. What this ushers in is a new way that our country is going to be politicized when it comes to silencing political opponents. And I think we're facing some really difficult times ahead. The dollar's been dumped by several countries. And again, many of us have been talking about the waste and the terrible amount of money, 120 billion, I think it's close to now, that's been sent to Ukraine for this proxy war that US and NATO is fighting against Russia. And the world is moving on, and the geopolitical world has changed. It's now becoming a multipolar world, including currencies. And we are falling behind the United States, and we're watching a slow demise right now. And all we can do as citizens is prepare ourselves and try to take care of one another and push back on the elites that are trying to basically hijack our country. So today, I wanted to give a perspective that we don't hear in mainstream media very much because it's saturated with anti-Russia sentiment. And I wanted to invite back a friend of the show who has been on before. And I'm really honored that he took the time to be here. He's very busy. The UN ambassador. He is from New York City. He's stationed in, but he's from Russia. And so he's representing the Russian delegation at the UN embassy. And he is also going to be part of moving forward with the UN Security Council as they will be taking over starting tomorrow. So welcome, Dmitry Polyanskiy.
Thank you, Tara.
Nice to see you again.
My pleasure.
All right, so do you want to break the news? And I'll have Reid put up the article in response. The Western media has been a little bit hysterical about some news coming from the UN Security Council. Could you tell everyone your perspective of the news?
Well, for us, it's just a routine. You know that there are 15 members of the Security Council, and each and every month of them, someone in order of Latin alphabet takes the presidency of the council. So in April, it comes to us. And I don't know why so many people try to make big news out of this as if it's something extraordinary, something happening for the first time. No, it's not happening for the first time. I've been here 5 years, a little bit more than this, and I remember 4 presidencies. I think 1 year we didn't have presidency because of this alphabet, but still, it's something very I would say routine, and it's a big responsibility because we have to steer the whole council. We have to conduct the meetings. We have to see to the rightful implementation of the procedures of the council. But again, it's not something that people would make big news right now. And we were last time we were presidents was also very challenging. It was February last year when our special military operation started, and the emotions were very high, but still we managed to be unbiased and to conduct our business in a very straightforward way. And I think nobody reproached us. We didn't display any bias towards any country, any ambassador, regardless of what nasty things he or she would be saying vis-a-vis Russia. But we are in the position of the president, and it means that we have to be in between. So that's in a nutshell.
And you mentioned it was routine. So this rotation happens all the time. So it's not unusual. It's a procedural thing. But in the article like that Reid just put up, there was a time, I think, a Guardian, several others that were very mostly kind of Ukraine fueled. The Ukraine did not want Russia to be heading it this coming month for April. But what I thought it was unusual to see so much press around that. But there's no procedural way that they can stop that. It would be highly unusual to try to block that. Am I correct?
Absolutely not. I think they explored the ways, and Ukrainian ambassador to the UN was very vocal about this from the outset. Even before the special military operation, he was already floating certain ideas of how to strip Russia its UN membership, claiming crazy things about the fact that our membership is kind of not legal. But that's laughable to all those who really know the situation and the procedure. So the only way to stop us would be to totally overhaul the whole UN system, to undermine United Nations, and it means, of course, to undermine the current system of international relations. And the stakes are too high to try to risk this. And I think that even most ardent Russophobes understood that they are absolutely powerless in this situation, and they just have to admit that Russia is becoming president of UN Security Council for the month of April, and that's what will be happening technically tomorrow. But in practice, the first meetings that we have would happen on upcoming Monday, and that would be the time when you will see us at the top of this horseshoe table in Security Council chamber.
You know, I think it's really fascinating that there's been so much press around it, as if there was something that could be done. But instead of trying to find ways to cooperate and go ahead and prepare for the month's agenda. So that brings me to another thing that just happened right before Russia was heading the council, and that's the resolution that Russian delegation brought forward to try to investigate the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And for those who might not be familiar with that, I don't know if anyone is at this point not familiar with it, but the explosion of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was a very significant event. It damaged civilian infrastructure, partially it belonged to Germany. It's a pipeline that runs from Russia to Europe that there's and two parts of it were damaged. And Cy Hirsch gave a very explicit reporting that showed the collusion between Norway and the US, specifically the Biden administration, of sabotaging the Nord Stream pipeline. You know, American elites were pretty open about wanting to do it before it happened. It happened, and it's caused quite a lot of problems for the energy supply in Europe as well. So this exposure is a war crime. It should be investigated. Officially, no one's been charged, of course, but there's not even been a real investigation objectively. So Dmitry, bringing it back to you, the Russian delegation brings forth this resolution for an investigation, and 3 countries voted for it: Brazil, China, Russia, and 12 abstained. Is that correct? Am I getting the numbers correct?
Yes, these are the right numbers. I think nobody dared, even from Western countries, to vote against, because they didn't have to. According to Security Council rules, every resolution, in order to pass, has to get at least 9 positive votes, and none of permanent members of the Security Council voting against. It would be a veto right. So they had the numbers because now the Security Council is overwhelmed by Western countries, and they quite easily block all the positive things in the council just by sticking together to block this discipline. But the reason behind our initiative was not only Seymour Hersh's revelations, but the whole situation around the investigation, because at this stage there are 3 national investigations of the countries, the neighboring countries. The most important of them was Danish, because the sabotage happened in the Danish territorial waters. So they obviously hold the keys for any involvement to this meaningful investigation. Swedish and German. German is also very particular because Germany is an affected party. It is supposed to be an affected party, as affected as Russia is affected. So one could assume that Germany would be very keen on finding out who was behind this. But it turns out to be that since September, when these investigations started and they were formally launched, there has been no visible results, and there has been no transparency. So on several occasions, we tried to get information from the pace of this investigation. We wanted to join this investigation as an affected party. We sent several requests through different channels, but either we didn't receive an answer, or we received a very formal answer that this is not This is not what these countries wanted to do. And so in the run-up to this vote on our resolution, draft resolution, we shared with the members of the Security Council the copy of correspondence with these three countries in order to illustrate that the claims that the ongoing investigations are transparent and meaningful, they are all false. And this caused some kind of a panic. And also these three countries, they wrote a second letter to the council, again, indicating that allegedly these investigations are very much transparent, and it's quite enough to have this investigation, because that was the line of defense of Western countries. The reason why they were not supporting our draft resolution formally was that they wouldn't like to interfere in the ongoing national investigations, and that was the main reason why they didn't want to participate in the drafting. So Brazil participated in the drafting, and that was the reason why they supported the text. Several countries were very much hesitating, asking us questions and showing to us that they really fear the fallout from their potential supporting of our initiative. But nevertheless, Western countries were a little bit uncomfortable, not only because of Seymour Hersh's facts, but also because of the way the US administration behaved and continues to behave vis-a-vis this incident. Because normally in such circumstances, people deny everything, but in the run-up to this event, as you know, almost everybody, including President Biden himself, was boasting that United States will stop Nord Stream from functioning. And also after this sabotage happened, I think some of the persons like Victoria Nuland, for example, were gleeing because of this sabotage, saying that it was a very positive development for the United States. Secretary Blinken as well was very joyful about this, saying that it opens a lot of opportunities. So it's a very strange situation, because if you are a detective, I don't think you really need to prove anything, because all the culprits are there, not only admitting their culpability, but also boasting about it, boasting about such a terrible thing. But of course, when it came to formal things in Security Council, the US representative was vehemently denying any implication, any involvement of his country in the sabotage. We asked him direct question when he was trying to argue with us, asked him, how could you, if you're saying that US is innocent, it has nothing to do with this crime, how would you explain the statement of President Biden saying that US would destroy Nord Stream? He, of course, ducked the answering it. He said nothing, and he didn't even take the word. So it's a very strange situation. I would say it's a very shameful situation for Western countries, because everybody is understanding that this ongoing investigation, they are trying not to discover the truth, but they are trying to kind of sweep everything under the carpet and to find a way to kind of bring United States out of the scope of the investigation, and proceeding from the fact that US is not involved from the outset. And this is, of course, a wrong way to deal with this investigation. But we will not drop this case. We will continue to push for truth to be revealed. We have our national investigation, criminal investigation. We also understand that now these three countries that run national investigations that I mentioned, they also can't claim that everything will be happening without the attention from the Security Council, because a lot of countries, when they were speaking after the vote, they were urging Denmark, Sweden, and Germany, first of all, to act quicker, secondly, to act in a more transparent way. So I don't think that it will be easy for them to do it in the same way, and they are a little bit under bigger pressure right now than they were before. And then we'll see. As far as I understand, Seymour also has something else to reveal. At least he was hinting on this. So we will see what kind of facts will transpire in the run-up, and we will assess our possible future steps in this regard.
Good. I'm really happy to hear that. Seymour Hersh is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who has an impeccable record. And he obviously has made it clear that he has some sources that have direct knowledge of what happened. And that, yes, there was US and Norwegian involvement. I think what was remarkable too, and what I wanted to touch on is you talked about, you were very kind with your language, but actually the US media just outright lied. I mean, they tried to float this theory that Russia did it themselves, which is ridiculous, and nobody bought that. Then they tried to float a theory that Ukrainians, nationals somehow did it. They wouldn't have the technology. And they did it. They even showed a picture in one of the legacy medias of a yacht, like a sailboat, not even a big yacht. And, it was a laughing stock. It was obviously planted by a US intelligence, and it wasn't a valid solution to what happened. And I think when the US does things like that, it's sort of like digging a hole and going deeper and deeper. They're not owning up to what happened, which was a war crime. So it was civilian infrastructure. So it was very unprecedented.
Yeah, I don't think we would like to move to the world when it's possible to attack such critical objects of infrastructure from each other.
Yes.
And to avoid this, of course, we need to ensure accountability for this sabotage. That's quite clear. And as for the theories that you mentioned, well, we are already accustomed to this, that everybody tries to keep calm and blame Russia, and there is already piles of lies which were accumulated for many years, not only in the US but in Western media as such. And that's why the common American or common European is already accustomed to the fact that Russia is a rogue state, Russia is a liar, Russia is a criminal, and they don't even care to get into the details. So everything that is being said projected about Russia, it has already negative connotation to them. That's why it's not very difficult for mainstream media to manipulate the public perception of the events, and a lot of people still believe that Russia is behind everything evil that's happening in their lives and in the international arena, despite the fact that all the claims have been either debunked repeatedly or they don't have enough evidence to support them. But that's another story.
Yeah. Well, hopefully moving forward, Cy Hersh will bring forward his reporting, and then somehow there will be an objective investigation, and this will, somehow get solved.
Yep.
But in a public way and not a propagandized way, which is what you were referring to, how US citizens and European citizens have been very propagandized by, media outlets that are controlled by government narratives. So we saw it with different things happening right now. It's about the proxy war. They're trying to, control the narrative and keep people, but people are moving away from it. The public opinion is shifting. And one thing I wanted to bring up was I saw something rather interesting, and it's not getting much mainstream press, but because it got overshadowed by the Donald Trump indictment. But Zelensky said in public, for several different articles were written, that if Bakhmut falls, that there would have to be a compromise with Russia and that new maps would be redrawn. And it was the first time that you heard him really talk about the reality, which is that Ukraine has lost. I mean, it's clear that they have lost. The Western media won't allow that narrative to come forward because it's not the one they want. But the numbers show the reality, and they are out of ammunition. They are running out of people, and they may lose up to 80,000 more, I think, in the Bakhmut area if they continue without,
I think it's a very modest figure that you voiced. The real figures, unfortunately, I'm absolutely sure, are much more sad.
Higher. Well, they've lost 300,000. Is that true to this point?
I don't have access to these statistics, but according to what we see and according to the way they are really trying to bring these new conscripts to this meat grinder as cannon fodder, I think that they are losing a lot of people. I heard today, according to our Ministry of Defense, that now they are losing about 500 fighters every day. Can you imagine?
Wow.
Most of them unprepared conscripts, and this is absolutely unnecessary. And this is something that the Zelensky regime will be responsible for. And of course, I don't know why these people are what they are dying for. They are definitely not dying for freedom and independence of Ukraine. They are dying for some kind of personal interests of Zelensky regime and also for his for the interests, geopolitical interests of his Western backers, and that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy, and that's a crime.
It is. It is. And you know, again, the Western outlets were focused on the ICC wanting to arrest the president of Russia, and that's basically kind of gone nowhere because the U.S. isn't even part of it, and neither is Russia a part of the ICC. And you know, I think most nations wouldn't recognize and don't want to be part of it. I think there was talk about South Africa about what their position would be, but it's clear that they're not going to comply with that. And you know, as I'm not going to ask you the tired question about if there's going to be peace and diplomacy, because obviously the United States has shown no effort towards diplomacy, and the rhetoric right now is very high and very anti-Russia. So I won't, you know, go there. It's kind of right now, and unfortunately, in a bad place. But I would like to ask. China was able to get a peace accord suggestion or wanted to kind of be involved, and the Russian Federation president said yes, he was open to that. Do you see any future with that, with a Chinese peace plan, or is that, you know, kind of falling aside as we move forward?
I think the Chinese peace plan is not a set peace plan. It's just a number of steps and approaches
Right.
which we welcomed. So it's a basis for future dialogue, but it has very right message there. And of course, this message was not very much liked by the West and by the Zelensky regime, because they are not interested in any peace from the outset. And we heard U.S. officials saying that that peace is dangerous and ceasefire is dangerous. I heard some of the members
John
of
Kirby, you're referring to the assistant secretary who said a ceasefire is not possible, and he was almost getting apocalyptic on air. Yes, he was.
I heard that we also need to quote here some advisor to Zelensky, I think Podolyak, saying that there is a very dangerous trend because more and more Ukrainians are asking for peace. So can you imagine how stupid this sounds? So for them, it's a bad trend because they think that every Ukrainian should be absolutely thrilled to die for Western geopolitical interests. That's how they see their nation. But of course, there is a change. There is a change even in Ukraine, where people now more and more understand how they are treated and what might be the future of their nation because of these criminal acts by Zelensky regime. And there is bigger opposition to the war. A lot of people are now being forced as these new conscripts, and without any preparation, without any military experience, they are being thrown into this meat grinder. Whereas the more experienced and prepared troops are waiting for alleged counteroffensive, which is important for Zelensky regime to beg for more weapons from Western countries. So I think the public opinion in Ukraine also understands what's happening, and I don't know whether you are aware or not, but very tragic events are now unfolding in Kiev, where the monks and the priests, the Orthodox monks and the priests, are being forced out from a place which is sacred to Orthodox Christianity. It's for about 1,000 years Christianity was really present there, and now Zelensky regime is trying to force them out and to replace them with some very pagan church political project, absolutely having nothing to do with Orthodox Christianity. And I think that a lot of Ukrainians are shocked seeing this happen, because nobody would imagine such a sacrilege to happen in their country. This also shows the true colors of Zelensky regime, and hopefully more and more people in Ukraine will understand where he is pushing their country and who really wants good and bad for their nation.
Yes, that anti-Christian is truly evil. And I did see the films of them not only expelling people from the monastery that you referred to, but also they were even talking about arresting, you know, these priests and nuns. And,
persecuting them.
Yeah,
persecuting them for their belief. And Zelensky at the same time is boasting that Ukraine has the biggest religious freedom in the world. He's doing this on the TV. So it sounds like really a mockery of everything.
Well, and and we all know that that the Kiev regime has never been about democracy. I mean, they've gotten rid of political opposition, they've gotten rid of the media, and now they're attacking the religion of the people. They've been killing their own in Donbass. The Kiev regime is supposed to be helping their people, not shelling them, which is why Russia's involved in the first place. Is to protect the people of Donbass. And it's been very clear. And I think there was a recent documentary that was released by Johnny Miller, who did a documentary about the Donbass, and I know you've seen it and referred to it, and Ava Bartlett has done her work as well, where the people of Donbass are welcoming Russia, just like in Crimea, and they're wanting to be part of Russia. So it's no question. I mean, I think the Western narrative still has been pushing back on that, but I think that's even kind of falling apart because it just doesn't hold up. The people have been on air. I think there was a major journalist that finally broke through on CNN or NBC.
It's very confusing for them because they see even the soldiers, the Ukrainian soldiers, complain that there are a lot of people who most people just don't want to evacuate, and they are clearly waiting for the Russians. So in their understanding, so they are kind of cooperating with the enemy. But if you look at this from the right side, you will see that these people, in the first place, they didn't want any Ukrainians there. So they are Russian people, and they absolutely want Russian army to come and to save them, and that's why they are very jubilant when Russian army enters new positions, and there is no guerrilla movement in the new territories of Russia, which joined Russia through the referendum, contrary to what the predictions were by US and Western forecasters. Yeah, so Tara, I'm afraid I need to really go. So if maybe
let's
couple more minutes.
Thank you. So one more last question, and that would be as far as what's coming up for April. Can you share anything about your objectives for April? Things that are coming onto your plate as far as what the UN Security Council is going to look at, or not at this time?
The tradition is that when a new president of the Security Council enters office, his plate is already very much full with the events and with the meetings which are predetermined by the mandate cycle. So we don't have a blank list of paper where we would imagine anything that we would like. We have certain spaces where we could squeeze in our preferences. So there wouldn't be very many meetings that we would promote ourselves, but I would highlight first and foremost our signature events at the end of the month, 24th and 25th of April. We expect Foreign Minister Lavrov to come, provided he gets the US visa, he and his delegation, and the authorization of overflight. So we are working on this. So this event will be about multilateralism, and the second one about Middle East, because situation in Middle East is very precarious right now. We will also have one event in the middle of the month, which is devoted to the transfer and illegal transfer of arms and unlicensed production of arms, which is a big problem. We will not concentrate it specifically on any country or region. Another thing that I would like to highlight, it will happen quite soon, actually next week, on the 5th of April, we will have an informal meeting of UN Security Council. It's called ARIA Formula meeting, where we would like to discuss the allegations of Russia kidnapping children from Ukraine, the ones that you referred to, because this is absolutely absurd and absolutely criminal accusations, which have absolutely no ground behind them whatsoever. So we will invite people. We will try to give more details on what we are doing, and it's really ridiculous that Russia is being criticized for saving people from war areas, and there are a lot of situations happening when people are being kidnapped, trafficked, exploited, and our Western colleagues absolutely keep mum about this, pointing fingers to Russia. So we will give figures. We will bring persons who will be able to discuss this issue in greater detail, and everyone who would be keen to listen to our position will be able to do it. Of course, those who don't want to listen and those who don't want to to believe in anything that is true. And they, of course, will not hear what we will say, but everybody else, I hope, will have a certain impression and certain conclusions from this meeting that would help them better navigate through all the accusations, false accusations and false narratives about Russia in this regard.
Good. We'll make sure and highlight that coming up April 4th so that other people can hear it. I think the audience
April 5th, sorry.
April 5th, excuse me,
Yes.
April 5th, that morning.
It will be broadcast through UN Web TV, so everybody can have access to it through the UN website.
Good, good. And for those audience members that might not know that the context of that, that's a lot of the people that were in orphanages, the children that were in orphanages, were moved to Russia for safety reasons because they were being shelled by Ukrainian shells, and a lot of that happened in Donbass. Did it happen in other regions as well, or Donbass specifically?
Mostly in Donbass, but in other regions as well. And I think 90% or 99% of these children, they come with their parents, and there is absolutely no threat of them in terms of going to another family. But of course, there are a number of orphans, and they need to go to temporary foster families or to temporary protection. And nobody is abducting them, and nobody is kidnapping them, and nobody is forcing them to do anything that they don't want. And there is access to these people, to these children, so there is no problem to check. And they have also possibility to speak to their relatives, and they don't break contacts with their relatives. But that's kind of a preview. I don't want to be a spoiler in our event. There will be many more details about this during this meeting.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being here and also educating the audience about all of this. I think listening is something that the Western media, independent and Western media, legacy media alike, needs to do more, and needs to listen to Russia a bit more and hear different perspectives rather than just what the elites want us to hear. So I appreciate that you came on today, Dmitry, and good luck to you with all the events and to the rest of your day. And
all the best to you.
Take care.
Thank you.
That's always good to have on the show. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye.
Take care. Okay, so that was Dmitry Polyanskiy, who is the Russian Federation member of the UN, and he out of New York City, and he was very generous with his time and kind of educated the audience, all of you. So I wanted to see if anybody had any questions. Reid, did you get anything while we were kind of moving through pretty quickly issues and topics? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Very nice. Okay. That's really nice. I'll pass that on to Dmitry. Great. That's great. So I wanted to, kind of share with everyone. I don't know, who's ever watching at this point. Hopefully I didn't lose a bunch of people when we went off and then came back on, but sorry, that was a little bit awkward, but we had to kind of break it up into two segments there. But I went on Tucker last week, and that's my third time with Tucker, which was really amazing. He's just such an amazing individual. And with the midst of all of this stuff going on, I was really honored that he brought me on to talk about. I had, and those of you that know my story, Easter Sunday in 2020, the New York Times printed my social security number with my congressional ID and had it online on their online version for several hours before taking it down. And this has wreaked havoc in my life financially, as you can imagine. People trying to open mortgages and open cards, people doxed me, it was horrible. So I took action and did a legal suit against New York Times. The New York Times, I lost because the judge said, oh, well, it's, in the public interest for them to print your social security number. So I thought that was the end of that. I lost, I was sad, but that's that. Well, then I didn't know this, but just like, when you do a defamation lawsuit, privacy suits can be subject to anti-SLAPP. It's very, very rare, very rare. And of course, New York Times slapped me with an anti-SLAPP, is what they call it, and wanted attorney's fees, which are upwards close to $71,000. Or they would seize all my assets and garnish my wages. And I'm not a wealthy person. So, I could be facing, bankruptcy if I can't come up with that money. And the New York Times is pressuring. And they pressured right in the same week that Matt Gaetz said with Marjorie Taylor Greene that I would be testifying in Congress about what Joe Biden did to me when I was a staffer. So I wanted to share with you my Tucker interview. It's about 4 minutes, and then kind of close out the show and just talk about a few more things and take any questions that anyone has. If that works, Reif, what do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Okay, let's go.
Neoliberal establishment has decided it can't win arguments. Nobody wants what they're selling at all, so why even bother to convince anybody? So instead, they're going right to force, and you're seeing that all over our country. And one of the ways they're inflicting force on people, inflicting pain, is through civil suits. Bring them to civil court, because anyone can file a lawsuit. And so there are a lot of well-funded lawsuits trying to shut people up or punish them for stepping out of line. And here's the latest example. This has not gotten enough coverage. So Tara Reid once worked for Joe Biden. He sexually assaulted her, and she made possibly the mistake of saying so out loud. You're not allowed to do that. So in retaliation against her, the New York Times posted her social security number on her website. Can you imagine the ramifications of that? So Tara Reid sued the New York Times because you can't put people's social security numbers on a website. But a federal judge has now ruled against Tara Reid and said that she has to pay the legal fees of the New York Times. So they're still trying to crush her. And we think it's wrong. She joins us now. Thanks so much for coming on. Did I misstate any of that? I mean, it seems like you came out and accused the sitting president of a sex crime, and we've spoken at great length about this on the air, and I don't think there's any question that it happened. You said so at the time, and now they're trying to hurt you for saying that. That's what it looks like to me.
Yes, this is just one of the many things that they've done, to try to silence me. But yeah, the lawsuit that I filed was because on the first story that they did, the New York Times, and they used me as basically a whipping post all of 2020 to try to silence and discredit me. But the first story was on Easter Sunday, and I was woken up very early in the morning by a friend who lived back east and said, hey, the online story on New York Times has your congressional ID showing your social security number. We need to get it down. It took a few hours. We got it down, and they did comply with taking it down, but it was very awful. So I did try to file a lawsuit. I lost. The judge ruled that it was in the public interest to print it, and I then was slapped with attorney's fees from New York Times, upwards close to over $71,000. So. Yeah.
So you are not a rich person, I know from our conversations.
No.
So just two quick questions. How is it in the public's interest for the New York Times to publish your social security number of all private things?
Well, suddenly, I guess there was a great interest in freedom of speech, and freedom of the press. So freedom of the press would be the impetus for that, and sort of a more of a legal argument. And I don't want to bore your audience with all of that, but there's been different ways that the, Biden administration has come after me. They've come after me with the DOJ, with sealed warrants on my Twitter, which are of record, and there's been, a little bit of press about that. They took my, communications on Twitter and all of that. So yeah, it's been, watching Joe Biden take a wrecking ball to I've been experiencing this wrecking ball to my life, but now I've been watching the last couple of years take a wrecking ball to the United States, including, the proxy war that Russia and that NATO and U.S. is fighting against Russia, and upwards of $100 billion going over there when we have dire circumstances here. So all of those things that I talked about, that I criticized Joe Biden about, besides the awful experience of being sexually assaulted by him when I was a Senate staffer in 1993, people are seeing just the true Joe Biden of how corrupt this regime is. And if there needs to be any regime change, it doesn't need to be in other countries. It needs to happen here. Now,
I agree.
So,
I agree.
Yeah.
We're seeing how cruel and ruthless they are. And not only they don't believe all women, they will hurt women who disobey. And you're a perfect example.
And further, Tucker, the New York Times has become, the legacy media has become like an arm of the Biden administration, like the DOJ and the FBI. I mean, look at what just happened to Matt Taibbi, who testified about, the different ways that they were trying to suppress U.S. citizen speech and using taxpayer money to do it and control the conversation and control the narrative. He got visited by an IRS agent the day of his testimony. So
they send the IRS to your house. Yeah, no, I'm not. So we're all waiting for that, and I know that you are. Well, you're living it now. Reid, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well,
so there you have it. Yeah, what'd you think, Reid?
I mean, pretty ballsy to call for regime change. I'm down.
Tucker was down.
Tucker agrees. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
And
what's remarkable is the next day you have the indictment of Trump, which has really shattered a lot of people's belief in the justice system. Because let's face it, as everyone knows, I was a lifetime Democrat. Then now I'm an independent. I won't ever vote Democrat again. And, as an independent, we're in a party. This isn't even about Democrats and Republicans. This is about abuse of power. And what Biden did and the administration is doing is abuse of power. And this brag is kind of again, another extension of the Democratic elites machine that they're taking after political opposition. And Donald Trump was doing really well in the polls. He was going to win the primary nomination. Mm-hmm. And that's a threat they don't want. They want somebody like DeSantis, who's more, he's more, if you will, established.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. As a Floridian, I can tell you right now, even Floridians wouldn't vote that guy if Trump was running. Right. So for me, it's you can indict a ham sandwich, that's the classic thing here. And, it's over something generally frivolous, compared to the rest of the things they could indict him over. So
right. Well, I mean, come on. They're going to indict him over hush money he paid for a consensual affair with a porn star, right?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I'm over here excuse me. I was a Senate staffer and I was sexually assaulted and sexually harassed, and I went through protocol and then tried to file a report. And then there's a police report from 2020. And I've tried to be very vocal about that. I would just like an investigation, please. Just an investigation, if nothing more. And again, it's just, we're so.
Well, see, Tori, you accused a Democrat. That's the problem,
Right. Yeah. So I know. Wrong perpetrator. So it's been really remarkable, but watching the shift in the narrative, like we were talking earlier about Ukraine, about the proxy war against Russia, and the stark numbers. Imagine 500 people a day are dying in that country because weapons manufacturers like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and the money laundering that's going on with the elites and the Biden administration, they're benefiting financially. That's blood money. These are human beings. And I think Americans are so detached from war. We haven't had it on our land. We haven't had it on our shores. to really, except, for the Civil War, which was no one remembers, right? But I'm talking in memorable history. And you have 9/11, but even that is, we're getting a generation away from them almost, right?
It's also questioned heavily how much, it's similar to how we knew Japanese planes were coming to, bomb Pearl Harbor. We knew that was happening for a while, still let it happen to get us into the war. We've lied ourselves into every war. Jesse J in chat, Ukraine dies for the indefinite oppression of Donbass and for supposed American interest. It's a freaking tragedy. KNS Cleanup says New York Times are losing their reputation. If they haven't lost it yet, you may just be a pin in the hat that does it.
It's just, we'll see. I mean, right. My voice has been pretty suppressed. You and I were talking earlier about like how, people can't like my tweets and they say they're liking them and then they bounce off. Like it won't take. That's on Twitter. And then on YouTube, I think you were saying something about monetization.
Yeah, we did. We reacted to that Tucker video too. And the minute I put it into YouTube, it was immediately limited monetization.
Oh, wow.
So which just means, people don't want to advertise with your name, apparently.
Well, that's shocking to me.
God forbid,
Gosh, why not?
I mean,
if you're
least,
out there,
like some horse tack commercials or like something should go on there, But anyway, it's shadow banning and all that fun stuff. So
and then there was a New York Times article. I didn't get into it, Dmitry, but there's a New York Times article. Oh, you do? Yeah, I think it showed up for the audience.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is talking about Europe and, of course, Ukraine wanting us to silence, or wanting big tech to silence what they call Kremlin propaganda. Those of us that are anti, basically. Those of us.
So the New York Times writes, the prime ministers of 8 European countries signed an open letter asking major social media companies to take more aggressive steps to halt the spread of misinformation designed to weaken our support to Ukraine and Russia's war of aggression. So that's their claim, and this goes along with, what is it?
What about the aggression of the coup in 2014? What about the aggression
Act,
for 8 years? Yeah.
Which is coming up, right? Which is just pretty much Patriot Act 2.0. It doesn't even mention TikTok or its parent company in that. Even though that's been the main. Very much so.
Ooh.
So it's kind of blanket misinformation claiming stuff like that. So
they're trying to criminalize our speech. Our speech.
Yep.
It's absurd. It's frightening. So it's not even just about forcing the sale of TikTok or forcing, TikTok to shut down in this country. It's about literally limiting our speech and our expression.
And it's tech censorship. They've tried to, get a hold of any platforms that don't fall in line with their narrative anyway. TikTok being one of them. Seeing as how we don't own it. This is consequences of multipolar world and globalization, but it's I don't know, it's frustrating for me being on a lot of these platforms. We get censored constantly, in multiple ways. So Jesse J in chat said Gray Zone did a great article debunking ICC charges. Don't know if people caught that. That's pretty good. I did like this thing from Jose Vega that they're projecting the Nord Stream pipeline truth now on the wall. That was pretty good. Played that during the segment. But yep. You saw that, I think. Maybe bring that.
Yeah.
But I love projector protesting. It's very good.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, because you have a really good show that you do with Colin. Could you tell the audience a little bit about your show and when it is and where people can find it? And
Einen News on Wednesdays. We have that. We recently had our 1-year anniversary, which is our Tara 1-year anniversary is coming up pretty soon. So you've done a year of stuff too, I think.
Yeah, nice.
So, but we had Robert Durden on last Wednesday. That was good. People should go check that out. We had Gordon Dimmack before that. People should go check out if people haven't watched that. But yeah, Wednesdays 8, 9 o'clock Eastern normally, and Sundays I do a show with Indie News. How did we miss that? We're gonna be doing that Sunday 10 p.m. Eastern. So people should check that out too.
And for everyone that's listening, I usually go to Indie and read for news and sourcing and stuff sometimes, or a lot of times actually. Because they're really keyed in every single day, and Indy works really hard as well on that too, and both of you. So and I love Colin's commentary. I love his presence, his voice. He always brings like yeah. And then Misty Winston is back on TNT Radio. I'm super excited. I was supposed to be on her show, and then they were talking about having me testify this last week. Then nothing happened.
She's been pushing an event on the 11th. Let me get the info on that for Assange in DC. If I just go to her Twitter real quick.
April 11th?
Yes, April 11th. Okay. I will find it. It'll be here somewhere where Misty's retweeted it.
So for all of you that are, wanting to really raise up that issue about Assange, I know that there was some genuflecting or some like virtue signaling from some of the progressives, Democrats, but try to pressure to release Assange, but I don't know. I don't think it's serious.
So
what do you think?
Yeah, we've got this is at Washington DC's at the DOJ, 10th in Pennsylvania. That's on April 11th from 4 to 6. So people should check that out. It's the 4-year anniversary, I think, of Assange being in Belmarsh. 4 years, and then it was 7 years before that in the embassy. So, if we could just let him out by now.
Yeah.
So
everyone show up. That would be good. Show up for Misty. We need Assange free. It's ridiculous, that he's in Belmarsh prison and now trying to be extradited to the U.S. And he's not even a U.S. citizen. He's actually Australian. It's bizarre under U.S. charges. So, because he embarrassed the empire. He exposed the war crimes and exposed. Actually, one of the things was the Kiev, the coup, that the Western Back coup in 2014. He exposed a lot of that. He exposed a lot about Hillary Clinton. And we all know when we make the Clintons enemies, what happens. It's just been a long line of carnage, right?
KNS cleanup in the chat. We found you through the Benny show, Tara. Was it the Bill Benny show, I think you were on? When was that?
I think so. Right.
2 weeks ago, something like that. Yeah, appreciate the support. Nice bit for Benny having you on.
Nice.
So anyway, I think that's it.
All right, that's all you got on your that's in front of you. Well, thanks everyone. I just wanted to make sure that we covered everything, and I have some new audience members, so I wanted to reach out to them and say hi, and thanks for your comments and your questions. Feel free to leave them in the chat. I'll try to, my email is posted on my Twitter account at Reid Alexandra. You can also follow Reid, check out his new show on Wednesdays. So thank you, everyone.
IndieNews.network. You can find all the links for that. IndieNews.network has everyone there. Tara's stuff's there. It's easy to find it. But anyway, you wanting to close?
Yeah, actually, I've got to take off. I've got some things to do today and some work to do for the Kim Iverson show. That's exclusively on Rumble. So check us out every day at 6 p.m. Pacific. And I love working with Kim and Johnny, and they have great integrity and they're so much fun. It's also a fun work environment. So, and thank you, Reid, for everything today. Sorry you had that power outage. Hopefully that will.
Florida Power and Light hates Russians. I don't know.
Well,
I was frustrated. So
yeah, or it could just be that our infrastructure is crumbling. Could be that
too.
Yeah. Anyway, take good care, and we'll see you next time, everyone. We'll be back next week on Friday with a new show. Usually we're at 7:00 p.m. Pacific, so you can catch us then. Take care.
Bye, fam.